Master of None, Big Sick, Homecoming King, and even Meet the Patels. Why are women of color, specifically South Asian women in these stories, brought forward as these kind of stand-ins for the culture, stand-ins for oppression, when often we're the ones trying to escape?
Do you just date Indian girls?
No.
The truth is out there.
You're just having a date, I'm just filming.
Women of color aren't seen falling in love on screen very often. In the top 25 romantic dramas of all time, none of them have a central character who is a woman of color. It's important to question what happens to a society and culture that grows up never imagining that certain people deserve love and can be loved and can love.
I put Big Sick in a slightly different category from Master of None and some of the other shows because we were told specifically this is Kumail's story. Like, this is his personal life. This was a movie based on what happened to him and his real life white girlfriend. And that one hits home to me personally because I am engaged to a straight white man to be married. And you know, one day I harbor dreams of like telling our story in a certain way just because it brought up such personal, deep cultural conflicts with my parents. I really identified with the episodes of Master of None and the part in the Big Six where you're lying to your parents about your non-Indian significant other or non-Muslim, non-South Asian, whatever it is.
I have to tell you something, Bai. I've been dating this girl. She's white. A white girl?
Basically, shouldn't we be happy that we're seeing stories of at least like biracial or interracial couples being told on screen, even if it falls into the category of another brown man with another white woman?
Why can't we have interracial stories that are not with white people? Like Mississippi Masala is a classic, and we haven't had a movie like that in 25 years. Like, we can put Denzel Washington in more movies. I'm totally here for it. Like,
He's barely aged.
Like, interracial relationships are not always about white people.
Right.
And I think that's the issue with, like, we have 4 pieces of media. 4. Yeah. Like, we have never had this, like, glut of South Asian media, diaspora media, in, like, ever. Right? So why do all 4 have to include a white love interest? Why, like, I'm not even arguing that they all should include brown people. I'm just saying, why does it have to be white people all the time?
There is a lack of representation for brown men, you know, and that is a real fact in terms of a larger society. Like, when you see yourself on screen, finally, you know, when you finally see stories of you falling in love, you think, we can't let this be diminished, or it might not happen again. And that I understand that feeling because it's real. In our society, that's how we're made to feel by the system. Just because a man gets to be on screen and he has the same skin color as a woman, that doesn't make him a stand-in for all the other stories. I get that it's powerful to see your own story represented, but I think as men, as straight men, we should question why our stories get represented the most.
Did you guys feel satisfied in the slight shift that we saw from Master of None season 1 to season 2, where it seemed like he heard a little bit of the criticism and he cast more diverse women?
All the women of color get less than an episode, and the Italian woman who's just, like, I don't even know anything about her except that she's Italian, gets like a 5-episode arc. Right. And it's ridiculous. Like, that's not an answer to any of the criticisms. That's very much just like, not even throwing us a bone.
It's interesting to see, like, these are all fantasies, right? These are stories are, like you were saying, we're projecting our desirability, our fantasy of what love is going to be for us and for, you know, people who look like us onto the screen. So when you present it in front of us, and even if you say, you know, I've included some women of color here in this episode, or I've went on some dates here with some women of color, we are all trained to watch and read the story as there's the one woman you picked, and that woman is the one whose fantasy is supposed to be the one we want the most.
So also related to that, we have Khadija in The Big Sick, who I loved, and I also want her to get like her own spin-off. And I thought she was a well-developed character for the short amount of time that she was on screen, and particularly, I guess it was like the last line that she has on screen, and she's like, I'm sick of people telling me what I deserve. Like, I loved that, and it was like for 5 seconds, the movie acknowledges that South Asian women or whatever have to deal with bullshit from all sides as opposed to what Kumail was dealing with. So what was your take on how Khadija played out in the movie?
I don't understand why she had an accent. That's like one of like my main concerns is she's played by a non-South Asian actress with a fake accent. And it's like that is extremely strange to me and a little bit problematic. I feel like that if we're gonna have one South Asian woman in this movie who gets like a monologue, who gets a bit to explain herself and her motivations and her feelings, she should be South Asian. The way that South Asian women were presented throughout that whole film is either like meddlers, people who interfered with her, silent women, like his brother's wife never spoke, I think. Silent women who sort of laughed and then like on the side, or like nameless photographs that get burned for some sort of peace offering. Like I feel like in a lot of ways we were sacrificed throughout that whole film just to make Kumail the star. So I feel like if we're gonna get a moment, it should be a lot more than that. Well, I want to see more women writing things, starring in things, directing things, producing things. I want to see more South Asian women taking control of these stories and showing off the nuances of our communities. Like there's so many of us and we all live different and similar lives. I think that's worth exploring.
I'd love to see South Asian men who do have these opportunities to make these stories, to look to those women and the work that they've already done for inspiration. You know, Roger Ebert said once that film is an empathy machine, and I think we have to always, as creators, as writers, as anyone who's watching movies, to think about it on that level. Like, who are we asked to put ourselves in? They're their shoes. And I want to see more asks from the screen, like asking us to put ourselves in shoes of women of color, of South Asian women, of queer South Asian women, just people whose lives matter and who aren't being valued in real life. I think they should be valued on screen, because on-screen representation impacts real life.